Christianity has been a large and important part of British history. However, Catholicism in Britain has been on a steady decrease since 1983. Last year, 2017, after a 5% jump from 2015's 48%, for the first time in its history, we became a majority non-religious country, with 53% of its population identifying as holding no religious affiliations. Our country is still run by Catholic leadership, churches and cathedrals on every corner, and we still celebrate Christmas and Easter heavily, so I want to find out why this happened now and what it could mean for the future of our country. To help me answer this question, I've been talking to British people, those who were once religious and those who still are. There are many ways people come into religion, but the most common is being born into a religious family. Many people are christened as a child without a choice and often without caring, and call themselves religious for no other reason. That being said, religion as a child is more than just a label, it's a social group and a way to make friends.
As being the first child in the family, I was taken to Mass every week, and it was pretty much all-consuming part of my childhood actually, because our mom is
Irish Catholic, yeah,
and has an unwavering faith, so it was something that just wasn't questioned. And also mum's mum, grandma, God rest her, she was also incredibly religious, and it was a genuine part of everyday life. So I'd go to stay at grandma's and we'd listen to the Angelus. I bet you never did that, did you?
No.
And that was like a 12 o'clock thing,
right.
And Grandma and Papa used to get the rosary out, and I used to love it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
But it certainly was just part and parcel. It was unquestioning, happened regularly, and it was lovely.
When I was religious, it just involved a lot of ritual, so I went to church every Sunday, but then on top of that, so whenever there was like a religious ceremony, it's like Easter, I'd go like every day for a week. Sad to admit, like I sort of enjoyed that as a kid, like I sort of feel like going around the playground and being like, I know, you don't know. So I think because like you had it ingrained in you that much, you don't believe, like you had access to something that no one else did, so I enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy church, I hated that, boring.
So I first came to church when I was 10 days old, I think it was. I've been a Christian ever since then. Grew up in a single parent household down south, not the southeast, southwest, so me and my mum, and yeah, she was a really devoted Christian, wonderful lady. So I was going to church every week, getting involved with all the youth groups, doing all that kind of stuff, and yeah, I just grew up as a follower of Christ.
Mass was always incredibly boring to me. It was always the bit afterwards that was fun. Because my mum was an integral part of the church. She's not one of those people who says a load of words and then it doesn't mean anything. She was part, and she still is an active part of the church. She goes around and sees the little old ladies in the town. So afterwards there used to always be a social event to church as well.
Do you remember Gladys and Tony used to give us bars of chocolate?
Bars of chocolate, yeah.
So
there was family friends around the church as well, so in the lives of people, it's really integrated.
Yeah.
And it's quite difficult sometimes for people who are really integrated into the church. It's inseparable from their social life. And I would probably say that for our mum. But
you were bored.
Yeah.
Pretty much from the outset. Whereas I wasn't so much until maybe slightly later.
However, for many people, something changes somewhere down the line. The social gatherings are still nice, but the religious overtone that used to be only background noise gets a little louder. I think the idea that churches and prayers and hymns are just something you grew up with and never considered a problem often becomes a problem in itself.
Sure, as I was like a teenager, all throughout that you have questions, you have doubts. It sets you aside from a lot of your mates because you're maybe living a different lifestyle, or maybe you've got a different viewpoint on things, or you have a different way of doing stuff. So yeah, you question it. It's not easy. So yeah, there's been difficulties along the way, things I've struggled with, but it's been a real blessing. It's been amazing.
Some of my mates, they were from non-religious schools, so that probably influenced something. I think if everyone was from a religious school and had the same, I want to say indoctrination.
No, you're right. It is completely and utterly indoctrination.
Yeah. But when
100%.
other people join you at high school and they've got different ideas, you go, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so,
yes, because it's something that you've previously never questioned before, and then you're like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
People think differently.
Yeah.
Maybe they're right.
I don't know whether the Christian God exists or not. Like, I'm pretty certain he doesn't exist, but obviously it's impossible to know whether there exists something that created the universe or not. But like, I sort of live as an atheist. Like, I don't really, sit and stare at the stars and go, I wonder what, or anything like that. So atheist basically, but I'm not one of them people who says I know that there's no such thing as God or anything like that, because that's silly, I think.
Yeah, so I would say a real defining moment for me with my beliefs and attitude towards religion was with my little boy, John, and he's a real bright little button, really astute, and at a really young age he was asking questions because both my kids were baptised Catholics. So John knows that he's a baptised Catholic, and he was just settling down to bed one night and he was asking me some questions and I answered them, and he was asking about the concept of God. And he was just a real little child, you know, and he was sort of saying, well, you know, how can God be everywhere and no one? I said, well, you know, Catholic people believe that God is three people, that he's a father, a son and a spirit. And John just went, no. And it was that point, it's like, why am I peddling these lies to my really intelligent little child and telling him that, you know, I was like, I can't do this anymore. You know, this is my child and I want him to be intelligent and well informed, and I want him to question things, and then we talked about the creation of the world, and he was like, well, I believe in the Big Bang, I've talked to Daddy about it already, and that really was the defining moment for me there, where I was thinking, not that I'm saying that our mum has lied to us, I'm not saying that, but I'm not able to carry that on.
Catholics are very, like, seemingly, the ones I knew were very, like, not backward, but like, when all your mates at college and school are like, have a certain view of the world, but then everyone else doesn't, who you know, you sort of like, someone here is fundamentally wrong, and then I like my college friends more, so like I sort of just went with that. So it was sort of like, I think at first I genuinely become irreligious, it was just convenient to be religious, but then eventually by the time I finished college, it's completely just pewtered out anyway.
There's so many issues with the doctrine of all religions that it's just hugely problematic to me. As well as teaching music, I am to some degree a scientist. I teach acoustics, so I teach the science of sound. And science really it isn't a religion. You don't need to believe it because you can prove those things. Whereas religion, it's just blind belief to a certain degree in things that
Unquestioning faith,
it's just unquestioning faith.
But I want to know what this means for the UK. For so long as a predominantly Catholic country, our values, morals and ethics came from our religion. I tend to consider myself an ethical person, but for so long the country has been working on morals mostly based off the Catholic religion, and with the majority of the country now without a religion, does this leave the majority with a different ethical code?
Sometimes the problem with saying that you're an atheist is that people think that you're without morals, and one of the main issues I think with the discussion about religion is that it's tied intricately to ethics and morals, and I think that actually we can still be moralistic and ethical.
Absolutely, and that was part of the theology A-level that we both studied. That was morals and ethics was definitely an integral part of that, wasn't it?
It was, but it was studied within that context of Christian theology. You know, you can only be moral if you're a Christian. Whereas I think that's a discussion you sometimes have to have with people, but I think that there's definitely a growing sense of awareness, I think, with young people in the UK about morals and moralistic sensibilities, and I think actually I would say that we are developing an arm of humanism that we haven't seen thus far.
I hope you're right.
Well, I think we are. I mean, yes, that there are a lot of problems with society,
and sometimes you think,
well, actually,
is the world going a bit bonkers? No. And I look at my own kids. No, I do. I look at my own kids and think, oh, should I have had them? You know, what is the future for them? And I'm not blaming a lack of religion for that, but I do wonder, I do question, what do people have a moral integrity and Christian? You know, not necessarily Christian values, but just good values.
Whilst making this piece, it became more and more obvious to me how important religion once was to the country. Churches and cathedrals were literally in every corner I looked, and it rose the question, what will happen to them, and to the rest of the remnants of Catholicism still in our lives?
I suppose now it's sort of like a pop culture secular thing. Some Christmas films have like some level of reference to Christ, whereas like The Grinch is like one of the most popular ones, and that has literally no reference to, and that was like 20 years ago that was made, so now I imagine what Christmas films are like now. It's sort of been assimilated into pop culture. Maybe Easter will eventually like kick the bucket and stuff like that, but I think churches should stay, whether they will or not, it's good, but I think that's like part of our history sort of, as like, so it's good to look at and stuff. Buddhism's not really big in certain parts of the world anymore, but you shouldn't tear down every like statue of Buddha.
I mean, again, it goes back to the social aspect. Those festivals are actually all pagan festivals, so they make sense in the pagan calendar. Christmas was the pagan festival right in midwinter, when everything's quite dark, and it was the festival of light. Easter was the pagan festival of fertility, which is why we still give people eggs, because that didn't make sense, did it? You're like, hang on a minute, Jesus died and we give people eggs? What? How does that work? And I think breaking up the calendar in that way socially is really nice. It's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Secondly, there's a commercial aspect to it as well. Shops, services make a lot of money from Christmas and Easter and whatever they can squeeze in between. So no, I don't think those festivals will ever go away, and I think because of that, I think
it's been driven by commercialism, isn't it?
It is,
yeah.
and I think religious leaders will also tag on to that, and those will never go away. It will shrink, and Mum's sort of talked about that in the church is quite old. The population is quite old.
Yeah, very
because
true.
they haven't been able to. I want to say entice. Is that the right word? Indoctrinate. Brainwash. All of they haven't really been able to tempt people into the church in that way.
It's inevitable. It will die out.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Christianity it's not a club, it's not like a gym pass, it's not you come to it because you need something. You come to give, you're made aware of what it is you're doing here and what you need to do, and that you're saved, that you are wonderfully precious, and that God's got a plan for you. Not to mean that you can't fall short and go against that, but no, I don't believe that there will never be a thing, because I know what the truth is. I know why we're here, what happened, what's going on.
Will these things begin to disappear, or is it the case that the religious side of these things disappeared a long time ago and left nothing more than traditions and habits behind?